Hi and welcome. I'm Bethany, the social media and community manager here at Australian Ethical. And today I'm joined by Amanda, one of our ethics analysts. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, Beth.
So we've been doing a series of videos while we all stay home during COVID-19 to help you, our members, navigate these really interesting times. And so far we've covered off what we're doing as a company and how we believe we can continue to invest for a more sustainable future. But we thought it would be great to share what our ethics team does. We have an incredible team of ethics analysts at Australian Ethical. They assess every company that we invest in, as well as monitor them to make sure that they align with our charter. So, Amanda, it's great to have you chat with us today. We know that the ethics team look at companies we invest in to make sure they align with our charter, but what people may not realise is that you're also responsible for advocating for a better world on behalf of our members. Can you tell us a bit about your advocacy work?
Sure, Beth. This is actually the part of my job that I love the most. So, at Australian Ethical, we see it as our role not only to make money for our members, but also to advocate on their behalf for people, the planet, and animals. And we do this through every avenue at our disposal, including company engagement, both in terms of the companies that we actually invest in and those we rule out. Using our voting rights as part owners of a company to put forward shareholder resolutions. And we also do advocacy to government on questions of public policy.
It's great how much advocacy work you do. In terms of engaging with government on policy, you've been doing some really interesting advocacy around environmental regulations recently. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, our national environmental protection laws are currently undergoing a review, and there's been some great submissions put in by environmental organisations calling for serious improvements to our environmental laws. And we wanted to add to their voice by having the private sector or investor voice contributing for calls for better environmental regulations as well. So we put in a submission and we, drew attention to some of the serious shortcomings that we have in Australia in terms of environmental protection. And some of the shocking stats are things like we have one of the worst mammal extinction rates in the world. Yeah, so koalas are predicted on current trend to potentially be extinct by as early as 2050.
So bad.
Yeah, it's devastating to think that that's a possibility. We also, the WWF has also identified the east coast of Australia as a global deforestation hotspot, one of only 11 in the world and the only one in a developed country.
Oh, gosh.
So we really think our environmental protection laws are failing our wildlife, our nature, and all Australians really. And we want to see stronger laws. Unfortunately, there's also a call for a cutback on green tape and for more industry self-regulation. We think obviously that the laws need to be stronger, not weaker.
Absolutely.
And Beth, as you know, we also got our members involved in this submission by going out to them and asking them to contribute their voice.
Yeah, we did. We went out on social media and asked our community to tell us why environmental protection is so important to them. And we got some really great responses and we were able to include many of them in the submission, which was really wonderful. So your voices are being heard, which is so great. And it seems especially important to be doing this type of work now. I mean, like, we don't want to see this backsliding while everyone's distracted by COVID-19.
That's so true. So on that, we have supported statements by groups like the Investor Group on Climate Change and the Science Based Target Initiative. And so both of those statements have called on governments to build back better. So that's talking about, like, after the pandemic, how do we support economic recovery? And we could support it, I suppose, in one of two ways. One is continuing the status quo or trying to create a greener economy.
Yeah, let's hope that we see the latter. In the past, you've been part of advocating against live animal export.
Yeah, so back in April 2018, we saw just how badly animals can suffer in the live export trade when that powerful 60 Minutes documentary came out.
Shocking.
So at Australian Ethical, we take a really strong stance against live animal exports. And back in 2018, I was sent to volunteer with the Animals Australia legal team to help put together a court case challenging live export. And what is amazing is that following that case, although it didn't ultimately get heard in court, the industry voluntarily banned shipments to the Middle East during the hottest 3 months of the year. And Animals Australia estimates that with that partial ban, over 1 million sheep have been spared the horrors of live export so far.
Yeah, and that voluntary ban has since become law. What else?
That's right.
Yeah, what else are we doing to advocate to end live exports?
Yeah, so I suppose as an investor, we have been able to speak to banks and insurance companies about their exposure to the cruel live export trade. And some of those organisations actually responded really positively. And what's interesting is that now some segments of the animal agriculture industry are actually accusing the banks of being animal welfare organisations because they've been tightening up their lending practices.
That's pretty crazy. It goes to show how effective engagement can be, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of our members or people watching this video will have seen that there was a recent court case about live animal exports. So that related to the 2011 temporary ban on sending cattle to Indonesia. So it doesn't really relate to the live sheep export trade that we've been talking about, although, of course, we're against all forms of live animal export.
Yeah, it's good to make that distinction. At the time of recording this, that court case has just come out, so yeah, it's quite timely. You also mentioned that we advocate for change in companies through our shareholder advocacy and voting rights. Can you share with us an example of this advocacy?
Yeah, sure. So I think a really good example is our advocacy on gender diversity. So last year, we identified the companies in our portfolio that we thought weren't doing enough to address gender diversity on their board and in their senior management team. And so we reached out to them, and in some cases, we even met with the board to discuss gender diversity and how they can do more. Like, we even shared examples of best practice that initiatives that we've seen other companies do. In cases where, following that engagement, we thought a company wasn't doing enough, we escalated things a bit by voting against the re-election of male directors at the next company AGM. But a lot of the companies actually responded really positively, and we have seen quite a few of them since appoint female members to the board, which is great.
That's really important. Amanda, we mentioned earlier our ethical charter. Would you mind explaining how the charter guides us in our business?
Yeah, sure. So the Ethical Charter has actually been in place since Australian Ethical started over 30 years ago. And all the companies that we invest in have to align with the Charter. So the Charter has 23 principles and they're all published on our website. But if I were to sum it up in a sentence, it would be that we only invest in companies that have a positive impact for people, animals, or the planet. And we avoid investing in companies that cause unnecessary harm. So I suppose in practice, what this means is that we avoid investing in things like the fossil fuel industry, in gambling, in alcohol, tobacco, weapons. And things that might not seem as obvious, like animal agriculture. But it also means that the Ethical Charter directs us towards more positive industries like renewable energy or education and healthcare.
Yeah, and those are the industries that are going to help us with this, post-COVID recovery for a more sustainable future. So it's really
Yeah,
important.
absolutely.
Yeah. And as Amanda mentioned, all of our ethical charter information and our advocacy work is available through our website. So if you have any questions or you want to find out more, it's all available there. We try to make sure we keep it all as updated as possible. And we post a lot of our advocacy work through our social media. So if you are interested, there are avenues to keep informed. Amanda, thank you so much for chatting with us today. I'm so interested in what your team are always working on, so I know our members will be as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Beth. It's been so much fun.
Thanks everyone for joining us.